Welcome everybody to SpeakEasy. Your presence here is the gift. The whole plan is that we are going to roll out this series on the 4 agreements. It's such a great and foundational book. If you haven't heard of it, see if you can pick yourself up a copy or Google some parts of it, because it really is such helpful information. But this time, since we've been through the 4 agreements a couple of rounds, we're taking it into what it looks like in relationships. We're going to start off with romantic relationship, move into parental relationship, then go to our relationship with addictions, and then close off with the relationship with ourselves. So, well, welcome everybody. This should be fun. So we're going to get into it. We're not relationship coaches. We're just here to share our experience, strength, and hope. And we also don't assume that our relationship represents all romantic relationships. However, I will say that Will and I, we don't have the traditional relationship. I carry characteristics of masculinity. He carries characteristics of femininity. We don't have designated roles. We don't confine ourselves to like expectations of what a relationship is supposed to look like. And I think that that has really helped us to stay in integrity with who we are. And I think it really was touched on in Kathy's song, like to really get with yourself and to find who you are before you come into a relationship, so that you can come wholly to a relationship, to know your whole self. So when you come wholly and I come wholly and we merge, we don't overshadow each other, we don't eclipse each other, we just merge in one small area. It's called like the Venn diagram, if you can imagine a Venn diagram, where one circle is whole, the other circle is whole, and they just cross over, and that small area is the relationship, and the rest of it is the individual. So in our relationship together, Will and I have a lot of space for each other to be who they're supposed to be outside of the relationship. So I think that'll be an interesting point of conversation for all of us. So I wanted to kick off our conversation with a story that I've told before about the conversation I had with a famous director when I was shooting a movie. And I said to him, what is the most important thing? His name was Judge Taylor. He's passed now, but he was a really wonderful artist. And I said, what is the most important thing that you can do as a director? And he said to me, the most important thing is to make the actors feel safe. I thought to myself, that's not only true probably on the set, but in every relationship, that we invite ourselves to help each other to feel safe. That's huge. At SpeakEasy, we reference the chakra system. And in the chakra system, we usually work from the root up, to be rooted in yourself, to understand your own sexuality, to understand your own intentions, your heart, speaking your truth, and so on. But in relationship, I like to invite people to work from the crown down. And that's kind of an interesting way to begin to interact with someone else, is to work from the crown down. However you work the chakra system, I think that each part of the chakra system represents a key element that makes for a very healthy relationship. The working from the crown down, we'd be working from the crown, your connection with your own spirituality and your own understanding of your spirituality. And when we get into a relationship, I think that knowing that about yourself and knowing how that looks for another person that you want to get into a relationship, I think it's super important information. Because when the lights go out and the road gets bumpy, I want to know, are you going to go to the bar? Are you going to go to the theater? Are you going to go to the basement? Are you going to go to the basilica? Like, where do you get refueled? It doesn't matter if you believe in Martians or mystics in my book. It really doesn't. But I want to know what you believe in and that you believe in something, because if I don't know that, then I don't know you. You know, if I don't know that you don't believe in anything and I think you believe in something, that's going to be a problem. If I think you believe in something and you don't, that's going to be a problem.
When our relationship was new, you were still a practicing Catholic, and that was an important thing to you. And we tried that to devastating, failure right out of the gate. And I had been, attending Agape and going to this New Thought, spiritual center, and I invited you to it, and you were open to it, and that was the next chapter of our spiritual evolution, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But it also brought up a memory that I was sharing with my students this past week. When my dad was dying, my father had terminal cancer. I was visiting my parents from California, and I was saying goodbye, and it seemed highly unlikely that I would ever see my dad again. I remember asking him, "Is there anything specific that you want in your funeral?" And he said something like, "No, from dust we come and to dust we return." And it was interesting to me because my father was very active in the Episcopal church that we attended. He was a lay reader, and yet at the very end of his life, what I was getting from him is that he didn't have a strong conviction that there was going to be a heaven or an afterlife. And so we couldn't really talk about, I'll see you again. Sometimes we don't know what we actually believe until the, rubber hits the road, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yep. Sometimes we don't know what we believe until people start to ask us those questions. The next part of the chakra system that I think is interesting for us to know about is your vision. Do you have a vision, and are you willing to speak to your vision? We start to get into a relationship with each other. Some of the precursor conversations are like, where are you from? How many kids are in your family? Like, do you like blah, blah, blah? And they're almost like root chakra questions, as opposed to like, where do you go when it gets dark? And do you have a vision for your life? Like, that seems like so intimate. But I think that we're at the point where more transparency and more intimacy is that people can handle it. So anyway, what's your vision for your life? To know this for yourself, and also to be aware of the other person might have a completely different vision, and can these two visions live under the same roof? Having an awareness of that, I think, is really important.
It's interesting you should bring that up, because I was just talking earlier before service began with there was a time when I had a vision for my future, for our future, for our family's future, and you wanted me to share it with you, and so we could get on the same page and hold that vision together. And I didn't know how to do that exactly. I'm on the cusp of getting my captain's license with the Coast Guard, and I'm now a school teacher, and I teach at a terrific school, and I have the summers off, and it looks like I could have a terrific summer employment and retirement employment as a boat captain. And there was a time a dozen years ago or more that was my vision, but I didn't know how we were going to get there. I don't know how clear I was on it exactly, but it was something like what has come into fruition, that is coming into fruition just now. As a couple, I wish that I could have been more articulate with you. And I'm sure all of you that know Maureen can imagine that my world vision and my life plans aren't as probably spectacular as hers sound. But I did have an idea that I will have a job that will provide for my family and bring me joy. I will have a summer that allows me to experience something else and sustenance and bring me joy and provide stability to my family. And that's a vision. It's not the same as I'm going to conquer the world, but I didn't know how to share that. I feel like there were times you're like, don't you have a plan? And
I
like,
was. It would really upset me. I'd be like, you need a vision. Like, if you don't have a vision, we'll end up like here, and we need to have a vision. I thought it was the most important thing to have a vision. And I think the reason he couldn't explain his vision to me was because I was making it seem like it needed to be like life-changing. Like, we need to like cure cancer or do something incredible. And so I think that's an interesting thing to figure out, how to have a conversation with each other so that all visions are held as worthy. There's a place within me that is very much about community, that is very much about celebration, that's very much about extending past my family to community. I would even say like community is almost a bigger family for me. And for Will, I thought when we got into a relationship together that he was an extrovert because he was like on stage and he was like expressing himself. And when we got into a relationship, he's an introvert and he's about intimate relationships and he's about staying home. And I'm like, what's going on? So, you discover each other, but in the discovery of each other, it doesn't mean that you need to implode the relationship. Is it okay that one of us is more out there in the world where the other one enjoys being tucked in more? Just like the Venn diagram, like you don't have to be everything that I am. But is it still okay that I'm everything that I am? And I can't make you everything that I am, but is it okay that you get to be everything that you are? And that, I think, is a really important part of having a vision and being clear with what your vision is, and also knowing that it doesn't have to include your partner all of the time. So the next thing we'll go on to is speaking your truth. So as I expressed when we first started, when we first began our relationship, we were in marriage counseling before we were even married. I had scar tissue. So figuring out how to communicate with each other, it's so important. We spent a lot of time looking at our blind spots.
One of the reasons that we went to marriage counseling so early is, well, first of all, we were arguing. And it didn't take long at all for Ruth to figure out that we loved each other and that we respected each other.
Ruth was our
But
therapist, Dr. Ruth. It wasn't Dr. Ruth, the sex
different
therapist.
one.
It was a different one.
But
Loved her though.
and so the good news is that she's like, I see that you clearly have affection for each other and admiration and respect for each other. The other thing that was something that we had to learn to let go of, and I don't know if it came from marriage counseling or just from you, Maureen, but early on, Maureen was coming from a divorce and a damaged relationship. I had been engaged to another woman and we'd been in a relationship for a couple of years. And so Maureen talked about scar tissue. We each had plenty. And early on, we spent a good deal of time, like too much time by a lot, trashing our exes. And part of that can be healing. But at one point, the way I remember it, Maureen's like, we just have to stop. We have to make an agreement to stop doing that. It was a very good call because it was just holding us in the past. It wasn't healing anymore. You got to vent, but at some point you also have to just heal. And I think the way I remember it, that was your enlightenment, Maureen. And I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Because I could talk a lot about my former husband. I was getting sick of my own voice. I was like, I need to stop, and you need to stop co-signing this because this is not good. Our words are wands, and what we speak about, we bring about. And I guess I would say about past relationships, or even if you're in a relationship where you feel like, okay, this person, they don't walk in the room and I'm not fully lit up, or this doesn't feel like I'm in a healthy relationship, wherever you are in your relationships, I will say that relationships aren't what they used to be. They're not till death do us part. Sometimes there's a reason, a season, a lifetime, and we don't get to know what the expiration date is on any given relationship. They all come in as classrooms to help us to learn something, and we get to decide when we graduate. And hopefully we get to decide when we graduate without too much scar tissue, without blowing up each other at the end. Leaving relationships will probably be a whole nother talk that we could talk about. But just to know that a relationship is, the value of a relationship is not determined by the length that it lasts. Okay. I think that's important. So in regards to relationships, most of the fears that run us are, am I safe, and am I valued? And that these are two questions that are, in my mind, supposed to be answered on both the internal, if we're working on ourselves, and also if we're in a relationship, on the external. So on the internal, I can know that I'm safe and that I'm valued. But if I come to a relationship and that person leaves me for Miss Universe, say, just as an example, it might rock my self-esteem and cause me to feel very unsafe in relationships. Conversely, if I come to the relationship feeling already, unsure of myself and not safe and not worthy, no matter how much convincing the other person provides, it's still going to take a while. So this I'm safe and I'm worthy has to happen on the internal, and it's my responsibility in a relationship, I feel, to make sure that you feel safe and that you feel worthy. And I feel like sometimes relationships fizzle out because we forget that that's a part of our responsibility, that we're supposed to be here to be each other's champion.
Let me circle back to a thing you said a couple minutes ago. I mean, not all relationships are forever, and that's absolutely true. And I personally resonate with reason, a season, or a lifetime. However, like I hope, Maureen, that your relationship with me is for a lifetime, but it doesn't mean that it's always rainbows and butterflies. I think you would probably admit that there have been times, and there's still times when I walk in a room and it doesn't light up your world. It sometimes it's all about, did you do the groceries and have you done the laundry and do we have time to do this and blah 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 blah. And it can, because in some ways a relationship can be like a business, and you got to take care of business. We've been together more than a quarter century now, and there have been times when everything just seems effortless and wonderful and easy, and there have been times where it's really felt like work, and there have been times that we've probably
done, like we're out, I'm out.
yeah, there probably been times that like maybe it was a season and not a lifetime. So I wouldn't want to encourage people to be like, oh yeah, maybe this is just a seasonal relationship, and now it's over. That could very well be true, but on the other hand, sometimes we have to refocus on
Right.
what we ignore withers, and to
Right.
what we give attention thrives. There's hope even if it feels done.
I love that you brought that up, Will. Absolutely, because you can be sure that if you don't heal it in this relationship, it's going to travel with you into the next relationship. You get to do the work wherever you are. I think that transparency is really important when starting and throughout a relationship. I think that many times we've been sold this idea of who we are, who we really want to be. Even when we talk about vision, there's my vision, there's what I want you to think my vision is, and then there's actually what my vision is. And some of it can be so unconscious that, like Will was sharing, like it's hard to even speak to who you are or what you want out of life, because you're still finding that, throughout your entire life, you're still finding yourself. It can happen that you could know things about yourself and yet kind of leave them at the threshold when you walk into a relationship. Like you could know, as an example, I hate things to be disorganized. I don't like smokers, and I like things to be zen and peaceful. And you could find yourself in a relationship with like a chaotic smoker who is living on caffeine and chaos. So that's a place I think where Will first found himself in our relationship, because I was a lot. I was just a lot. And I just had a lot of chaos in my life at that time. This was prior to my getting sober. So even though those were not things that probably Will had on his wish list of being in a relationship with somebody, like we do get to also know that we evolve with each other and that we can evolve with each other. And that is an important thing. We're not supposed to be each other. When I describe the Venn diagram, there's also a great symbol for relationship is the yin and yang symbol. If you think about the yin and yang, it's like we can kind of complete each other without being each other.
Believe it or not, you're still a lot. You're just a different kind of a lot. The things that attracted me to you are still attractive to me, and they are also, some of them, still the things that drive me crazy. And that's I think something that's probably true I mean, I don't pretend that we're speaking for all relationships, but I bet that's a constant in many relationships, that what attracts us to someone might also be an irritant, and that yin yang, the completion of the whole by the other, is kind of cool. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a neatnik bordering on anal, just irritating partner guy, that isn't probably always, easy for you. But that same aspect of me is the one that keeps, the bills paid and the cars running and our house functioning and the driveway shoveled and whatever. And your spontaneity, that might drive me crazy, is also the thing that brings so much joy and happiness to my life. I think at the end of the day, we have to either accept each other or not. And it's not that we have to take every like single wart and shortcoming of our partner and just accept, like, oh well, that's just the way they are. But sometimes I like, if I tried to change you into my dream partner, I think I would destroy what some of what I love about you.
When you get on the relationship train and you're like, okay, you and I, we're heading to Florida, like you never end up in Florida. I mean, like people change, people shift. I am not married to the man that I married. You are not married to the woman that you married. I remember even when I got sober, and I don't mean to like throw you under the bus on this one, but you were like, I didn't marry an alcoholic. Like I really loved hanging out with you and partying and having fun. And it wasn't too long before into my sobriety that you came to me and you're like, I'm really sorry I said that. This makes me kind of teary, but I'm sorry I said that because I thought I was going to be losing a part of something that I valued, and I didn't lose it. Anyway, we evolve in relationships. If we do it well, we can evolve into a more purposeful version of ourselves. So sorry, I got a little emotional there. But nevertheless, relationships, especially long-term relationships, they will see you through so many changes, and change is stressful. Moving houses, changing careers, watching parents die, watching your children change genders, all of these things can be a call for like people who lose children. All of these things can be relationship enders. So we kind of have to be very careful and kind with each other, because change is not easy. And so we're literally watching each other going through all of these changes together. And there was this beautiful quote that Will gave me this morning that I'm going to read. Give each other space. Keep your sense of humor. Get help if you need help. Like marriage counseling is a real and really helpful thing. Remember what attracted you to each other. And even in those things that you find repulsive about each other, like see if there is some other thing about that you're not seeing. I had a client come in one time who talked to me about her husband snoring, and then he passed away. And she came in and told me, like, if I had known, like I long for that humming when I was sleeping in my bed. So we just don't know the things that are going to be the things that we cherish most about each other. Look out for each other, have each other's back. And here's the quote. And this is from Jane Smiley. She's a novelist. You know what getting married is? It's agreeing to take this person who right now is at the top of his form, full of hopes and ideas, feeling good, looking good, wildly interested in you because you're the same way, and sticking by him while he slowly disintegrates. And he does the same for you. You're his responsibility now, and he's yours. If no one will take care of him, you will. If everyone else rejects him, you won't. What do you think love is? Just going to bed all the time? And Will's going to close with a poem.
From The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Then Almitra spoke again and said, "And what of marriage, master?" And he answered, saying, "You were born together, and together you shall be forevermore. You shall be together when the white wings of death scatter your days. Aye, you shall be together even in the silent memory of God. But let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. Fill each other's cup, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each other, no, but let each one of you be alone. Even as the strings of the lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music. Give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your hearts. And stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. Scene.
Somebody asked why we're in separate boxes. That's why we're in separate boxes. Because we're supposed to allow each other space.